my interest in the ocean, or more particularly in the coastal region, so coastal ocean, let's say, and the land part, began when I started, when I was still living in London, working in London, and I moved to contribute in a research project that was dealing with establishing assessment models for looking at the impacts of sea level rise. I had very little to do with the ocean before, except for the fact that I come from a coastal country, from a coastal nation, but I used to work on completely different topics, forest fires. I find the coast in particular very challenging because looking at natural physical processes does not give you answers to the questions you might have. You need to integrate the socioeconomic components and understand how humans are affecting the system. From the aspect of impacts that I'm looking at, I think sea level rise is definitely that's something people need to address. And we know that we need to make decisions early in order to have time to confront those impacts and risks. And we need to make decisions for an uncertain future, because we know too little to be able to forecast whether sea levels are going to rise by 1 meter or 30 centimeters by the end of the century. Yes, they are. They are becoming ever more, I wouldn't say popular necessarily, but they become a part of the agenda. So the coast as we know it will not exist in 50, 60 years in terms of not only hazards and risks, but in terms of how we utilize the coast. So, for example, protection is a standard way to, protection by dikes, for example, is a very common way to confront the impacts of natural hazards, of storm surges. However, it's increasingly likely that in the future we will need to use other options. And this is not happening at the moment because people think that giving land, for example, to the sea, so retreating, is some kind of a loss. Generally, disasters have been, or adaptation in the past to, for example, coastal disasters has been reactive historically. So we wait for something to happen and then we respond. And all, let's say, impact assessments that are taking place now assume quite the opposite, that we are proactive in adaptation, and that's why it pays off to adapt early. I mean, there are very good examples of countries with very limited resources that are able to minimize impacts of, for example, tropical cyclones. We have the examples of the Caribbean, for example, or Cuba, where you see you have major storms, but impacts are relatively reduced or small compared to what they could be due to community initiatives or just the people being aware of how to respond.